Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm making this video because we just got news out of the state of Maine that former president of the Maine Senate, Troy Jackson, a Democrat, has officially announced he is running for the 2026 governor's race. He joins the Democratic primary, which also includes Secretary of State for the state of Maine of Shanna Bellows and Angus King III, the energy executive and son of the former governor and current U.S. Senator Angus King. I'm doing this video because Maine's governor election and Maine's Senate election have been getting a lot of talk, and that's because the Democrats thus far have failed to get a top-tier Democratic recruit to run for the U.S. Senate race. Troy Jackson was one of several Democrats mentioned that could potentially run against Susan Collins last year going into the 2025 year and talking about the Senate race, and now that he's running for governor, it really looks like another Democrat off the list, and the Democrats are running out of people to run for the Senate race. Now, as for the governor side of things, Shanna Bellows, the Secretary of State, Troy Jackson, the former president of the Maine Senate, there's not been any polling done for this primary, so it's really just based off of candidate name ID and speculation. So at this point, my best guess would be that, and it is 100% a guess, there's nothing else to really go off of here, is I think Shanna Bellows starts out as the leading candidate to be the Democratic nominee, mainly due to the fact, mainly, I didn't mean to do that, but also, that's kind of funny, mainly that she was the Secretary of State for the state of Maine. So from an election office standpoint, she is the highest office of the three Democrats running so far. So she would have that leg up on that situation. I would also say she has the highest name recognition, though Angus King III running in this race, the son of the U.S. Senator, may give him a little bit of an unusual advantage as well with name recognition. So of the three, it's possible that Troy Jackson, despite being the president of the Maine Senate, may start out actually with a little bit less support or the same amount as Angus King III, but we'll have to wait and see for polls to come out on that front if that is the case. Another Democrat, Kenneth Forrest Panett, has filed paperwork for running for this race. There's a bunch of other potential candidates who could run as well. But also U.S. Representative Jared Golden, who has currently filed paperwork to run for re-election, has also expressed interest in potentially running for governor. And he's the big X factor here, because he's been mentioned for a while now for Democrats of being a possible candidate for the Senate race. But Susan Collins, who's expressed interest in running, right now there are no notable Democrats who have expressed interest in running for this race. Jordan Wood, the former chief of staff to U.S. Representative Katie Porter, is declared he is running for this race, but there's also really nothing really too well known about him other than the fact that he ran against Katie Porter. You're trying to take down a Republican incumbent who has won several tough elections now. Getting a non-high name ID Democrat is not going to probably cut it. We saw what happened when a Democrat without much name recognition ran against Susan Collins in 2020, and she was able to win and defy the polls by 8.6% of the vote. Fully transparency here, I do think Susan Collins is in for a tougher fight than 2020. I think the polls will be a lot closer this time around, and I think she'll have a smaller margin of victory. But right now, the Democrats are continuing to have the issue of not getting a top-tier candidate to run against her. Troy Jackson was one of the potential Democrats that could run, and now he's running for governor, so his name is out of the mix. Jared Golden is mentioned as possible candidate, but he's expressed more interest in running for governor and running for re-election than he has for running for Senate, so I would assume you could rule him out of the list. Now you have some former state senators and some state house reps of the state of Maine that could run. You also have the governor, Janet Mills. She also probably represents the Democrats' best chance in this race, but the Democrats are really running out of room here on the Senate side of things to put up a top Democratic candidate. So just to kind of wrap everything up on that side of things, the Democrats are really just running out of options in the state of Maine. And it's funny because when you look at the 2026 Senate map and all the videos I've done on them so far, this entire time I've pretty much been praising the Democrats on being able to land top candidate recruits in a lot of these races. If Roy Cooper runs in North Carolina, that would be a slam dunk. Brian Kemp and Chris Sununu not running on the Republican side in Georgia and New Hampshire is very good news for the Democrats. Maine not being able to get a top Democrat to run against Susan Collins is very bad for the Democrats because it could very well be a very winnable and flippable seat, similar to Georgia, where I thought Georgia, if Brian Kemp ran, I thought it was pretty much a sure bet that Brian Kemp was going to beat Jon Ossoff. If, for instance, Jared Golden were to run against Susan Collins, it would be very close, but I would probably have Maine narrowly flipping to the Democratic side. It also is worth noting, I believe Jared Golden used to work for Susan Collins. I believe is either a legislative assistant or a campaign intern of some kind. So he does not, from everything that's been reported, want to run against her. That takes one of the Democrats' top recruits away, but no other top Democrat has expressed interest in running for this race. Where right now, I would have Susan Collins winning by about 5% if the election were held today. I think she holds on and wins. And in large part, it's due to the fact that Democrats are having a very hard time landing a top candidate in the state of Maine, which we just saw in 2024 vote for Kamala Harris at the presidential level by about 7%, 6.9% for Harris over Trump. At the Senate level, we saw Angus King, the Democrat, win by, or independent who caucuses with the Democrats, win by about 17.4%. Susan Collins won by 8.6% in 2020. Maine overall is probably a likely Democratic state, and yet it just voted for Susan Collins for Senate. And if the Democrats can't land a top recruit, which again, thus far, does not seem to be the case unless one of these potential Democrats jumps in. Specifically, Janet Mills, Jared Golden, or Shelley Pingree are the only three I think would put up a real formidable fight against Susan Collins. It's looking like Susan Collins may actually be able to hold on to this race and by a more comfortable margin than before. As for Troy Jackson in the governor's race, again, we're going to have to wait and see how this primary all plays out. On the Republican side of things as well, there's a lot of Republican candidates. Two of them are running, lots of expressed interest in running, and lots of other potential candidates as well that could run. We're going to have to wait and see on that. The predictions for Cook Politico and Sabato Crystal Ball have it as likely Democratic. Inside Elections has it listed as battleground. On the Senate race side of things right now, Cook Politico and Sabato have it lean Republican. Inside Elections, Rachel White House have it as a toss-up. Just to close out the video, I'll give my brief predictions on this. For the governor's map, in the state of Maine, I currently also have this race listed, unsurprisingly, as likely Democratic. We saw Janet Mills, the governor of Maine now, win 2 elections in Maine by a likely Democratic margin, 13.2% against Paul LePage in 2022. 2018, 7.7% for Mills in 2018. I think it's possible Maine could be closer than maybe expected. Like it could be an 8 or 9 point Democratic win, but I certainly do think the Democrats are favored to win the state of Maine right now. In the Senate race, I kind of already tipped my hand on this one, but I think Susan Collins is the favorite to win in Maine in the lean Republican margin right now. I think the Democrats' really failure to get a strong Democratic candidate in Maine thus far is hurting them in the state of Maine, and if they could get a top Democratic candidate, this ranking could easily change. But for now, I think Susan Collins is going to win re-election in the lean Republican column unless things change on that front. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit like and subscribe if you did, and hope to see you in a future video.